movies, and next time the boys will visit us in Nashville. But without further ado, I gotta, the guest of honor, the reason we're here,
Yes.
of Chris and Jake of Mirador. Come on out, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, darling. Technical difficulties. I'm going to keep this in my hand.
Good call.
Thank you. I hope the film was all right. Was it loud enough?
Yeah, it was great.
No? All right, Belcourt. Next time we'll turn it up, eh? Carry on.
Yeah, that was one of those situations where we had to ask beforehand, because we're trying to put together, I guess, a rock concert essentially, and other people are trying to watch movies here. So it's
right.
a conflict of interest.
Conflicted.
Yeah.
I'm not conflicted by it.
We're here to rock, right? Come on.
Yes.
Gentlemen, let's dive right into it. What idea or challenge came first? Performing at Badon Hill or reimagining your songs?
You take that one, Chris.
There's no ability to pass.
Well, shit. Well, the first thing is it's complete nonsense. We don't know where Badon Hill is. This is all a ruse. It doesn't exist. It's some spurious place where King Arthur may or may not have sort of dealt with the Anglo-Saxons, but no one knows where that is. So we just pompously stole it for ourselves and named our record after it. So finding it is still complicated, and we're still trying, right?
Yeah, it is interesting. It was, I suppose around Bath where Chris is, lives.
How dare you?
Check it out sometime. It's it was interesting. It was a venue not too far away from that point. It was like just sort of realistic for us to go and film there. And it was sort of like technically feasible. It was like, let's go and record here. And it was a beautiful sort of medieval barn, and it sounded incredible. It was haunting and beautiful, and we were just worked for what we were doing.
And reimagining as well. We wrote the whole record acoustically.
I imagine.
So it was kind of like, okay, let's get everything back in the room, let's busk it out in a couple of takes and see what it feels like. And it's fun to see Mikey and Nick play in that environment, especially Nick, who's the most devastating double bass player in the UK right now. And to get him to do that without feeding back and having to deal with Jake's amps was... It's true.
Now, going through that process, were there any songs that surprised you or that you became a favorite or a new favorite in that context?
I think so actually. The first track off of this that what was the first track off this?
Ashes to Earth.
Ashes to Earth, thank you. That was
Audience participation is welcome.
absolutely. I'm not sure. Russian.
It was interesting because that song, stripped down, contextually changed quite a bit. Because again, I don't know, in the studio it was a bit different because we'd sort of just thrown a bunch of electrics at it. That might have been one of the outliers for the tracks that wasn't written acoustically.
Yeah.
So when we stripped it that back, it became sort of Romani and almost sort of piratical or something in some ways. And Nick was bowing the bass, the double bass, and Mikey was playing with his hands, and it was strange stuff, but it really recontextualized the song. It was very different.
Yeah, and that was the last song we did in the whole session, even though we played it first.
Okay.
Because it was like, okay, if we're going to sing this and do this, we're not going to be able to do much after this. So I think we just did the one pass of it, and it was fun to play a resonator again, the 12-string resonator, and just reinvent what that could become. Also became my favorite, I think, for the session.
Now, going into an environment like that, it sounds like you guys recorded live with a single take in that environment. It sounds risky. Do you go in with rigid arrangements, or was that and then have those really rehearsed, or did you let the barn and kind of the moment and kind of the energy direct the compositions in a different way?
It's a bit of both, probably. A lot of it was somewhat constructed. We had it's different because I suppose we were recontextualizing these acoustically, so we had to sort of deconstruct them first, and then we rehearsed at Chris's one day, maybe for a couple hours. That was the night before, was it?
I can't remember.
Cheers. Anyway,
what I think I will say is we're all pretty. What's the next question? Sorry, what was the question? I think we all kind of pride ourselves on being. We're open to like you know jamming things out and improvising. Right, you've been to these shows. We are making a lot of it up as we go along. So we certainly do that with these live performances as well, because if you invite that level of risk into any performance, shit's going to happen that you cannot plan, and that's what I think Ashes to Earth has, that some of that energy. So I think we had rough structures and ideas, but we were going to forget most of that, and other things were going to come out because of that.
yeah.
How long were you there, and was there any pre-production involved beforehand, and how on site, how long were you there?
It was one day,
Okay.
really, and maybe a short period of time. Again, the thing was, the venue was up the road from Chris's house. We walked to it, like 5
Empty down my studio.
Yeah, and we rehearsed at his studio for a couple hours there the day before. I think we had a bunch of vinyls to sign or something like that. So instead of signing, we drank a bunch of tequila and then went to bed. And then the next day, we got up and we walked across the street and recorded at the barn for a couple of hours. So it was really quick. And we were touring, or leaving for the European tour that next morning after that. So it was like sort of 3 days of frenetic wildness and inventiveness, because it was pretty quick that we had done that. And we, had filmed it for, I don't know, maybe 5 hours or so, the entirety of that shoot. And we'd gone to bed, woken up, packed into the trailer and the van, and off we went across Europe again. So that's how that was done, really.
Now, who came up with the idea to do it? I know that this was a mythological space, in medieval times, but it really happened. So, who came up with the idea, and why that spot?
No idea. I blame the tequila.
Actually.
We have a penchant for doing things in stupid places. I mean, the first recording that we did, right, like the Englisham, the
Yeah.
St. John the Baptist Church.
Yeah, St. John the Baptist Church.
It was that was an interesting one. It was like Jake was out, let's do a bunch of acoustic recording. I found an utterly outrageous place to do it with no electricity, no heating, down a farm track, 3 hours for nothing. And he said yes, and we nearly killed one another. The film director got pneumonia shortly after, true story. So we thought we should do that again on a grander scale. And
With a bit of heating, maybe during the summer.
Yeah, the summer, that's it. We did it in the summer. With all of the things as regards sort of Mirador and trying to pull things back from the past, sort of pulling out ancient sort of lyrics or structures or metaphor or stories or sort of icons and narratives, characters, people that we were pulling into the songs, it felt appropriate to use some of these spaces and take the risk on doing something that's more unique and interesting. And it just so happens that this is not far from our studio. It's a private situation. It's never been used. And what it is a tithe barn, which is basically a really, really early sort of, structure where they would tax anything, farmers' grain to beer to anything. And they have such a sort of strange energy and beauty. And this particular one is covered in anthropomorphic marks, so witches' marks and emblems. You can't see it on the walls, but they are covered in all these different sort of ephemera and shapes and carvings. And because it was there, it just felt, well, this is a perfect space to move into and just see what happens. We didn't know it would turn into this, just the story of our friendship to some extent. And I'm really glad we did. So it wasn't planned, it just became, well, this is a good thing to do. And interestingly, sonically, it was beautiful because there was no straight walls in that barn. It's got a straw roof, wooden floor, and everything is moved and shaped.
Yeah, by all technical circumstances, it sonically should sound like shit. But it really sounded amazing. It sounded unbelievable. Yeah, so that was quite a bonus.
What was the energy that you guys experienced there? I know that have done previous interviews, and you had mentioned kind of that became a part. It became almost like a fifth member of the band because of what it brought, in terms of I heard, well, verbs were rumbling was the word that you used, and energy rising.
Yeah.
Like, can you speak on that?
Sure, yeah. It was interesting because, again, this is something that we were doing acoustically. So, I think it's a difference, It's like when you get together and you're playing sort of electric instruments and you're blasting it. There's a different approach and a different philosophy and a different feeling altogether for musicians or anybody who does that. So the idea really was, the preface was, okay, there's an aspect of Mirador, I think, that can be acoustic, and again, that, I suppose, for rock and roll bands, people who, contextually, as we know it, rock and roll's a, guy, an amp, some drums, front vocals, and a shitty bass player. And it was like, okay, wouldn't it be interesting if we, because Mirador, and Chris and I, we started playing acoustically, and that was the beginning of that stuff, and that was a side that hadn't been shown. The record was really heavy, it was really electric, and it was really live, and it was, and the shows that we played in North America and Europe with Mirador were just that as well. And so the whole idea is, I think we have to demonstrate this side of things, this sort of intimacy or vulnerability when it comes to that. But it was interesting when we got into that circumstance, because it didn't really feel like that. It didn't feel acoustic at all. It felt more like a live rock and roll circumstance again, and there was a weird energy in that place.
Yeah, in terms of that energy, not to get too wooey. Is that the time? Bring on the woo, 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 woo. Because I don't go for that nonsense. But we did. I'm getting woo woo right now. Sure, it's a bit fun thing. Yeah. It was at the end of Fortune's Fate. I think that was the second song that we cut, and we just, this is a very quiet space in the middle of nowhere. It's out in the countryside. There's no real, the activity that was happening there was, we're talking 1066 to the 1500s, so it hasn't been used in a long time. So it felt very dormant, and something happened towards the end of Fortune's Fate. We were playing, and we got to the end of the take, and not to get too woo-woo, but there was something, there was a kind of movement of something, some energy, something shifted and felt sort of the movement above the top of the room, and I thought, this is pathetic, this is just I'm tired, but then we discussed it afterwards, and Nick, who is incredibly stoic and British and sensible, also said that he felt something. So yeah, that's the rumbling, right?
Well, it was really crazy. I don't know that sort of thing. It's like, whether you believe in ghosts or not, and you're just like, this comes of your spirits or energy or distilled energy or whatever. And I was like, I'm obviously somewhere on the line of that. But yes, some of that I believe. I feel I've perhaps experienced it. But I'm pretty much like, I don't know. I don't know, an naysayer for that. But I've never experienced anything like that. Playing music, it was weird. It was very strange. I was dead serious. It was like I felt this weird energy, like the ground was shaking under my feet. And we're playing acoustic. It's impossible. So then it's an old barn, and I just felt it move up and sort of swirl above our heads. And we all sort of at the end of the thing, that was the first track, and we all talked about it at the end, and we said, felt the same thing.
The record is
okay, that's strange. It was old and grown in Persia fought for thousands of years. I'm sure dead bodies under there.
Well, let's not get too dark here. Now, speaking of songs, you selected 5 of them for there. Songs Must I Go Bound and 10,000 More to Ride, to me, were obvious selections and easy translations to this type of format. But Ashes to Earth and Feels Like Gold are more drastic reinterpretations. How did you go about selecting the 5 songs, and how did you go about reconstructing some of these more complex, we'll call them rock songs?
After you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I kind of think it's probably that same thing where it was like similar to the first question. Was like, how were some of these radically different reimagined? And yeah, some of the heavier tracks, like it feels like gold and ashes to earth. Very different, just completely recontextualized acoustically. But I think that is a beauty. I don't want to be too self-inflated or anything, but I do really like the fact that Chris and I sort of have worked from the basis or philosophy of song structure and all of the music that we appreciate and that we strive, have strived to create it with Mirador together has been, two acoustics working on that foundation of real music and real song structure. And if you have these bigger rock and roll songs that are highly electric and really work on a big stage and that sort of thing, but when you recontextualize them and readapt them to be acoustic, it works, and it worked in that sense. But then you can entirely change them. That they didn't sound at all like the record version because of that.
Yeah. Now, off of that, what do each one of you bring out in the other? Because you guys have both other projects. I've heard of this band called Greta Van Fleet. Chris is an Ida May. Gentlemen, what having each other kind of write ideas off? You guys are guitar players and normally, single guitar player bands. What is this like to have a twin guitar attack?
Shit.
It's
not good.
Actually, I just did it to get away from my twin brother, and then I started getting in the way, basically. It's been fascinating. I don't think either of us expected to have another sort of creative relationship, and that was quite so intense, and where we could write as quickly as we could and as fast as we could. It was, again, you can't plan for any of this. I think in both of us it was. It's one thing in moving away from a project. So one project that can be baggage, there's sort of creative constraints, there's parameters you set in the way you record and the way you work. So starting fresh with something like Mirador, where you had this blank slate to just begin to create, to open up, to find ways of writing and of doing was incredibly exciting. Especially with no plan for it to do anything, just this is fun, let's hang out.
Yeah.
So I think in that respect, I think Jake has vision, which I really admire. So there's always this sense of future, this sense of destiny, this sense of becoming and turning it into something which has been impactful in my own creativity without a doubt. But he does play loud, and I get to play a Marshall stack, which is great.
Yeah, I do certainly think that goes both ways. It's a bit different, and the projects that we do, people outside of Mirador are different, and it was that one fateful night that perhaps Ida May would have been out with Greta Van Fleet years ago that I sort of discovered Ida May period, and then Chris as a singular force outside of that, and that sort of grown and evolved in other ways, and at some point you are sort of forced with that. And I suppose everybody in this room probably has experienced this feeling where you meet the crosshairs of destiny or something, or you're sort of forced with seeing something truthful in the face, and you go, oh, okay, well, Chris and I were friends before this, but sitting down and sort of sharing that connection with guitars is like, I've never sat down with anybody and played guitar and gone, or heard of anybody play guitar and gone, I can't believe how similar what you're doing, where you're coming from. We're coming from a very similar place in that, And then sort of started singing together. It was like, I can't believe, or I had heard Chris sing in that sense, and couldn't believe how similar that was. And it was like, to find sort of one creative kinship in a lifetime is something unique and rare, perhaps. And I've got my brothers in that, But I didn't think that it was possible twice, And when Chris and I went, had gotten into just writing scenarios and all of that, it was like, okay, there's something more here, and I guess it would be foolish not to try to explore what we could create together.
Well, it's so I know these individuals in their own right for the music they make, and so I know them, for Greta Van Fleet and Ida May, and we recently did a rig rundown. That's my day job with Mirador at Brooklyn Bowl. But it seems like you guys are genuinely good friends. Not only just badass guitar players, you guys seem like it's a good hang when they're around each other. Or is that forced?
First facetious comment.
Well, you're English, I'll let you go first.
Smoking mirrors.
Sometimes.
No, it's become an issue for
Chris is
writing
being an
this.
asshat.
It's a genuine issue in terms of writing the next record because we're supposed to be doing some of that this week and I've just been hanging out.
We won't tell the label that. But recording at Badon Hill and doing it in that type of context, do you think that might change or influence or impact, you know, how you guys might want to approach or write or record records in the future?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, it depends, but I think one thing that's interesting about this, and again, differences, the dissimilarities or you know, where things begin to, change is where Greta is, acoustically it's different, you know, and with this band, we can both play electric music very loud, turn up amps and do that thing and play rock and roll music. But I think where the delineation begins to become more apparent is when Mirador, I think there's something interesting to offer acoustically there that I, you know, haven't tapped into on the other side of things, you know. So I think, yeah, it's anything artistically, I think, when you find something that's different and you go, okay, there's some truth or reason to this line, if this thing makes sense, if what we're doing acoustically is different and unique, and I've never experienced that level of performance or that level of dimension, then yeah, you have to start digging deeper and try to better understand why, you know, artistically, and go, why is that? And with Mirador, that's just the case. I think the gathering at Badon Hill was a profound experience of going, how can this be so dynamic and unique? And I haven't experienced that in the other project, you know, Greta necessarily. So I think that's an aspect of Mirador that's unique, you know, to me in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we will take some of this as well to the next record. I think in terms of how we produce and record it, we're already talking about ideas, and I think the acoustic element is quite unique in what we do. So we're certainly going to lean on something like that more so. When we have more time, we'll discuss it when we're not doing more important arsing around.
Is there another barn that you have in mind? Is there another barn to, you know, a barn to record in?
Sure. If there are any availabilities out there, should we do it again? I've got a lot of barns apparently. Is it haunted?
No, notice there's a redundancy in the track listings where it said reborn at Badon Hill behind each song title. Can you explain the significance of that?
Yeah, Chris, go ahead.
Shall I be honest? No.
Yeah.
Just trying to find a clever word for reimagined.
Yeah, I don't know. It just sounded good.
You guys found a thesaurus. You found a thesaurus.
Yeah.
Nice.
That was Chris. That was a good one, Chris.
Would you ever consider going to another, I guess, historically significant or insignificant place that is made up to record something fun in the future?
It's almost guaranteed we're going to get ourselves into some shapes. Yes.
Probably.
No plans. We have spoken a lot about boats.
Does anyone have a boat? Patrick.
Yeah, when does the Mirador cruise take off?
Ah, the Mirador. Man, more.
I was going to ask, when does the Mirador cruise shove off?
When does it end?
Well, actually, this is a good opportunity. On July 16th.
One last question before we move on to I have some of your guys' questions that might be in the audience, is how did you select the 5 songs? Out of all the ones on the self-titled record.
Yeah, honestly, it was self-explanatory in a way. It was like, which of the which of the songs on the single record we have could work, you know? It was a bit of a limited pool of songs, you see, because we've got 12 in total, historically speaking. So we picked 5 that I think we knew could be, you know, dynamic and would make an interesting performance. Really, that was it. Yeah.
What was the one that was most challenging?
It really feels like gold because it's a 5.5 minute super heavy jam that you then have to play for 5.5 minutes on an acoustic guitar. That was the most challenging, and we played that a fair few times to get the best take out of the bunch. That was the most challenging, I think, just to keep the dynamism really up and down without having big amplifiers and volume and intensity. And trying to keep that, the song has quite a unique sort of swagger and groove and pocket. It's different with a double bass, especially with Mikey when he's playing shakers and didgeridoos and biscuit tins. So it's, yeah, that was the trickiest one, to get that to settle and sit right. I think we got close to it.
We're going to move on to the fan questions here. I got some usernames from Instagram, and some of these I'm not even trying to pronounce, but we're just going to say.
Read them out.
SARII asks if Mirador had a place in the world that perfectly represented its sound, where would it be?
Damn it.
Some bleak ancient
Neverland.
mossy cave somewhere. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Treasure of gold.
Yeah.
Cut.
I don't know. That's a really good question. You know, I think about all the sort of envisioning and dreams and ideas that Chris and I have come up with. There's definitely sort of a space and a philosophy that surrounds Mirador. And I kind of sort of like trying to imagine what that would look like visually, but I don't know. It's like similar with Greta, you know. You can imagine sort of landscapes. There's sort of, you know, say infrasonicism or something where there's like this visual representation for a sonic medium. You know, you start seeing these things. It's interesting, but with or some shit like that. But you know, but that's
So not a
interesting.
cave.
Yeah, so that, I don't know, a beautiful sunset with a sword in my chest or something. I don't know. It's an interesting. That's a good question.
Handle it.
I don't have an answer for that. I just personified.
Greta Van Mieremaid asks, Jay, please talk about what it's been like to sing.
Oh,
Question, yeah. Scary. In all honesty and transparency, quite frightening because you know I've done it growing up, but you know Josh and my brother's an exceptional singer beyond you know it means that he needs to be. And Chris as well, so I don't know. I've been surrounded by singers that are inordinately talented and incredible, so I've just tried to do my best. It's difficult, because for me, I know my voice as a guitar player, I do. Yeah. I could play anything, and you know, someone could go, okay, that sounds like Jake, but I still don't know what that is vocally, and I'm still finding it, you know. It's a hard thing to say out loud, but I'm still searching for that. I know that perhaps I can sing all right, but it's been a great deal of pressure and a lot of self-discovery.
Yeah, I think leading yourself to be vulnerable leads to growth, and I think that's where you're headed with this Mirador thing. Not only as what's going on here between you two guitar slingers, but also yourself as a singer.
Yeah, thank you.
you're doing great, Jake.
Oh, thank you so much.
Here comes another one from Viva Weeba. Viva Weeba asks, this is going to be a dance one. This is a good one from Viva Weeba. Twofold question. Both questions are two sides of the same coin, but first we'll start with Jake. How was the transition from writing more mystical songs to then leaning more into blues and hard rock? And I'll start with Chris, just so we have it. How easy was the shift back into writing rock music for a band after so many years had passed since the last time you did it?
Chris,
Yeah, I started out in rock and roll bands in the UK. I was 19 when I first started doing this madness, running around playing rock and roll. But it was always
the Crossfire Kid.
John
That's what I call Chris. He's the Crossfire
behind
Kid.
closed doors. Yeah. But it's it's relatively, my first loves were early folk and early blues, right? So rock and roll is just a bastard son of the blues, so it's pretty simple for me to be able to draw through lines with what I've been doing with Ida May and my own work and writing and production to what we do in Mirador. You know, it's the source that I became enamored with and obsessed with when I was, 14, 15, 16. That was my life. So in terms of, is it strange coming back to playing rock and roll? No, it was interesting to be sort of pushed with a bona fide sort of situation like this to have to pick that mantle up in a space in an arena that's genuinely an arena, or whatever it might have been, to go, okay, if we're going to do this, and as things escalated as they have done with this project, okay, we're really going to have to stand up and settle into this and perform in a way that I haven't done in a long time, in a way that best represents what Jake does, and to be part of his lineage and history of what that is, as much as a friend wanting to do it for him, and as much as for myself. But that was I guess the biggest thing was like, hey, you got to put on your cowboy boots here and step out into that stage. And you do it like you mean it. It's not a small London band fighting its way up to the top anymore. The doors open. So that's the biggest shift for me, was a mindset shift of, okay, if we're going to do this, it has to be on a level where it's uncompromising.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's follow that. Here goes it. Once upon a time, 1,000 years ago.
To go on. I was born.
I don't know, yeah. It's interesting that, I guess, from mythological music was the question, to blues and rock and roll music.
Mystical.
Yes,
mystical song to then leaning more into blues and hard rock.
That's interesting.
Which is the mystical band?
Yeah.
There's a bit of mysticality to either, I suppose, but I don't know. It's different. They're very different bands. I suppose one thing that for me is draws a line of complexity is the fact that Greta sort of, there's a trajectory there. There's a sort of lineage and an evolution to it. So it's like the music that we would have written, the next record we would have written, or the next record after that we would have written, and so on and so forth. It takes an evolution. It changes. So like, let's say something like Anthem of the Peaceful Army, for example, would have been very sort of bare bones and straightforward, and that was really intentional. It was very stripped. It was very organic. It was like, we can build on this, and we did that on purpose. That was a foundation for us, and then it keeps moving. And then so with Mirador, it's like all of a sudden I'm at the beginning of that journey again, almost 10 years later. Now with a different sort of project where it's like, okay, what's the beginning from Mirador? What's the foundation that we're laying, and what are we going to build upon there? And what will that look like 10 years from now? So I guess that's the complexity of that circumstance. When you look at one versus the other, it's identity. And I know the identity of Greta. When you live in something that long and you've grown up with those guys, which I have, and then that's a set thing. I'm sorry. And then Mirador, and so that's a new journey, and the foundation has been laid. And yes, there's more blues, there's more things that I could do in this scenario that I could do in Greta because we've evolved past some of that stuff. So I get to take the things that I love, that I grew up with. Like Chris, I grew up with blues music, and out of my brothers, I'm probably the most obsessed with it. But we all come from that foundation. And with Mirador, I get to take that thing that I love the most and reconstitute it.
Well, before I get to the final question that I have here from the fans, is I want to ask a follow-up. It's like, is there a struggle for both you guys identified with your previous, not say previous bands, your other bands, your other acts that people may be more familiar with until Mirador became what it is? Was there, it sounds like there could be a freedom to create something new, or have you ever been worried about, I guess, not, rescinding against your old, I I don't want to say old because I know everything's current, but you know what I mean? Like with Greta Van Fleet and Ida May, it's like you guys are creating something new, but people are expecting that because they're fans of these other bands until they become fans of Mirador. Was there an apprehension, worry, concern?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, there's a bit of scrutiny, you know, obviously it's like, and there's belonging, you know, that people, you know, a sense like anything. It's like people who identify with something, they feel in love with that, they're drawn to that, it's the roots of something, it's the foundation of something. And I don't know, everything that anybody does that, you know, you have to do something that's important or powerful or meaningful or has to be done, you'll push against the force of, you know, or the winds of fate or something. You'll push against something. There's nothing ever would be done if it was, you know, if it was that easy, then, you know, we could all do it, then that would be that simple, you know. But yeah, of course there was that in mind. It was like, what are people going to expect? And also, you know, we've set such a expectation musically, I think, in Greta, and I think with Chris and Ida May, it was like, we've had a huge amount of time and, you know, building something that, you know, means something and feels a certain way. It says something, has a message, has a meaning, has a purpose, and a value. So it's like, yeah, of course there's going to be that. What is Mirador going to do? You know? And what is it going to stand for? And what is it going to sound like? You know?
Yeah, and I think in a very simple sense, when we were coming across that and approaching it as writers, it was just two kids in a garage with guitars. It's the way we really felt with all of this, because you could read into this and how complex and how big the situation would be to come in and write another project alongside something like Greta, and for Jake to step out and what that would feel like, what that would look like, how it would feel, how it would be interpreted by fans, how it would be digested by fans. And the reality was, which if you boil it down to its purest essence and its purest core, it was just an accident of two people that really got such a kick and a thrill out of playing with one another that this was inevitable, that something was going to happen. So at any stage when it felt overwhelming or too big, or how is it going to be perceived, as much as we scrutinized and evaluated every small iota of what was going to go out, how it was going to sound, how it felt, as long as that essence of, if we were excited about it and we were doing it and it felt good, then it's good. Yeah.
We've survived so far.
Well, the last question from the fans that we got here is Delaney Art asks, what belief about yourself have you had to let go of in order to grow as an artist?
God, man, these questions are easy.
I threw them all out.
Which one was it?
What keeps getting deeper about yourself have you had to let go of in order to grow as an artist?
Belief about myself.
Is there another one after that so he's even deeper and more complex and harder to answer? Was that the last one? Sure.
This is truly the last one.
Okay. Promise, Chris?
It's an ego check, Jake. It's an ego check.
Okay. I have no hubris. Sort of. I left it at the door. Or Valhalla the Mountain of Dreams.
Belief? Shut up. Belief in too much about shit about myself, you know? Honestly, you know, I guess with all of these things, a bit like the same answer to the last question. It's like, if you care about it, if it makes you feel something, and someone you trust feels the same way about it, then it's good. You know, like, don't second guess things, don't overthink things. You know, I think we live in an age of algorithms and social media, and everything's so intense and so hard to work through, especially as a creative. Getting back to the very, very simple things, that you guys coming out here listening to us so we talk complete waffle and, you know, both smoke each other's, you know. It's like, you know, these things are really, really important. So, you know, this whole project has been a case of, in the writing and the performing, in the doing, of just doing it because it feels like the right thing to do, not overthinking, not overstressing. So I guess in my younger years, when I was putting bands together and putting process and writing songs and getting signed and doing all that, it felt so intense. Like the world was on my shoulders and everything was going to be do or die. And that's not the case, especially if you consider yourself an artist and you're working and you're creating across a lifetime. These are just moments. These are Polaroid pictures and the piece that you're going to put together across a lifetime. So I don't know if I believed in Russia in the first place about myself, but is that a good answer?
That's a really
I
good
did,
question. I'm going to try to even follow that up. Yeah, no, I think it's a good question, but I think for me, it was fear, you know. I think that's the undefinable thing for all of us, I think, but, you know, artistically, but in a human sense. We all experience that emotion, and I think greater than anything else, there's a form of diminished returns when we speak about fear and its ability to hinder our capabilities or our possibilities. It can render us useless, and so I think that was a big aspect of it for me. You know, I think in many ways, and I think in life. But once we fear itself. I don't know. For me, it was taking that jump in many ways. You know, we're standing on the precipice of, like, you know, infinity or something, on the edge of the earth, like Chris was saying. You know, there's a great amount of fear, especially when you're younger, like we were when we were coming up in bands and we were coming up, and as you see this, and at some point you're standing in front of 20,000 people every night or something like that. There's a great amount of fear in that, especially you know, if you. I'm certainly shy, so that scared the shit out of me. But I think that's the thing, really. There's so much greatness, and there's so much resolution, and there's so much hope, and there's so much depth that we can all live. You know, we can all live a dream of our own that is greater, and it wasn't that scary after all. You know, that's what it was when you could shed that. Is I think the greatest fear would be fear itself. You fear the thing, you fear the unknowing, but in reality, the sense of that reality is not so frightening. You know, and once I would learn to let go of that, you know, then the rest was pretty all right. You know, so, you know, Josh probably says it, or someone knows it. You know, fuck fear. You know, and live your life through the intelligence of love. So that's true. That's what I learned. You know, growing as an artist in that.
Gentlemen, I can't add any more words to that because you guys eloquently put a close to this. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris and Jake from Mirador.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Making it. It's true. Making it. Take it back. Love you all. Thank you for being here. Love you. Enjoyed it. I truly love you. Thank you.
Bye.